Who is the mysterious hijacker D.B. Cooper, and how did the notorious hijacker of 1,971 vanish with $200,000? Some believe new clues may finally solve the case. This is the only unsolved airplane hijacking in the history of commercial aviation. On the afternoon of the 24th of November, 1971, the night before Thanksgiving, a man on a flight from Portland to Seattle threatened to detonate a bomb if he did not receive a large ransom. After receiving the money, he released all passengers and ordered the crew to fly to Mexico. On the way, with the money in hand, he parachuted from the plane and disappeared without a trace. The man became known as D.B. Cooper. After more than 50 years of FBI investigation, his identity, whereabouts, and motives remain unconfirmed. No one even knows for certain whether he survived the jump. However, in 2023, the child of one of the prime suspects was said to have shared evidence that could incriminate their late father. The FBI's extensive file on D.B. Cooper describes him as a white male, about 6 feet tall, 165 pounds, in his mid-42nd, with olive skin, brown eyes, black hair, cut in a traditional style with a part on the left. Cooper boarded Northwest Orient Flight 305, sat in an aisle seat at the rear of the Boeing 727, lit a cigarette, and ordered a bourbon and soda. He then handed a note to 3-year-old flight attendant Florence Schaffner. "I have a bomb in my briefcase. I want you to sit beside me." Schaffner complied, and Cooper made his next demand: $200,000 and 4 parachutes to be delivered when the plane landed at SeaTac Airport. While police and airline staff on the ground scrambled to prepare the money and parachutes, the pilot circled the skies over Seattle, telling passengers a minor mechanical issue required the plane to burn fuel, prolonging what should have been a 30-minute flight. After 3.5 hours in the air, the 727 finally landed. Cooper received the money and parachutes, released all 36 passengers and 2 of the 6 crew, ordered the plane refueled, and directed it to take off toward Mexico, via Reno and Yuma. During the first leg of the flight, while the crew remained in the cockpit, Cooper lowered the rear stairs and parachuted into a storm, never to be seen again. The FBI pursued thousands of leads, investigating more than 800 suspects over the 5 years following the crime. One of them was Richard McCoy, Jr., who on the 7th of April, 1972, under a false name, boarded a flight from Newark to Los Angeles, threatened to bomb the plane, and demanded $500, 000, and 4 parachutes before jumping from the rear stairs. The hijacking occurred less than 5 months after D.B. Cooper's leading many to suspect McCoy was the culprit. He was later sentenced to 45 years in prison, and in 1974, after escaping with a fellow inmate in a hijacked garbage truck, he was shot dead 3 months later when the FBI tracked him down. McCoy's children, Shantae and Richard III, Rick, long believed their father might have been behind the D.B. Cooper case, and in 2023, they revealed their suspicions to Dan Grider, presenting the FBI with a parachute and harness hidden in a shed on their family property in North Carolina, along with a notebook placing their father at the hijacking scene, which they had withheld until after their mother's death. Another lesser-known suspect was Sheridan Peterson, a former Boeing employee who had worked on writing the flight manual for the Boeing 727 that was hijacked, and who knew the rear stairs well. A skilled skydiver, Peterson had served as a smoke jumper in Montana and worked at the Issaquah Skydiving Center in the early 1962nd, the very facility that supplied the parachutes Cooper used. However, unlike Cooper, Peterson had blue eyes, did not smoke, and claimed to have been living with his family in Nepal at the time of the incident, though no firm evidence was found. Robert Rackstraw, a pilot and former paratrooper, had a history of trouble, theft, check fraud, and suspected involvement in the death of his stepfather. After being acquitted, Rackstraw faked his own death in 1978 and later served 2 years in prison for check fraud and airplane theft. In the 2016 book, The Last Master Outlaw, authors Thomas J. Colbert and Tom Zalosi concluded that Rackstraw was D.B. Cooper, a claim an attorney dismissed as the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Rackstraw died in 2019. Kenneth Christiansen, a former mechanic, flight attendant, and purser for Northwest, was also suspected. His brother Lyle recalled that when Kenneth was dying in 1994, he said, "There's something you should know, but I can't tell you." Kenneth had been a military paratrooper and bought a house with cash 1 year after the Cooper hijacking, despite earning only a modest flight attendant salary. Cooper was clever, retrieving the ransom note from the flight attendant, but still left behind a few traces: cigarette butts, a hair on the seat's headrest, and the tie he pulled off before jumping. The FBI was unable to lift fingerprints from these items. At first, Cooper was thought to be an experienced paratrooper, but analysis later suggested otherwise. No seasoned parachutist would have jumped at night, in the rain, with winds of 200 miles per hour, wearing loafers and a trench coat, FBI agent Larry Carr said in 2007. They also believed Cooper acted alone, as if he had accomplices. He would have demanded a specific flight path, instead of vaguely saying, "Fly to Mexico," before jumping in poor visibility. In 1980, 8-year-old Brian Ingram was digging in the sand along the Columbia River in Washington when he found a rotting bundle of $20 bills totaling $5,800. When his parents contacted police, the serial numbers matched the ransom given to D.B. Cooper. It remains the only physical evidence from the hijacking. 6 years later, Ingram was allowed to keep $2,760, and in 2008, he auctioned 15 remaining $20 bills for $37,433.38. Following the hijacking, the Federal Aviation Administration installed the Cooper vane on all Boeing 727, a small latch preventing anyone from opening the rear stairs mid-flight, as Cooper had done before, vanishing into thin air.